Hi, everybody. It's Mr. Wyatt here, and we're going to start a brand new section today, topic 11, and we'll be talking about circles and circumference. I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm wearing my Journey concert T-shirt today. This is from their Escape concert back in 1981. And the reason I'm wearing this shirt today and pointing this out to you is because I want you to know about good music. Because I would tend to think some of the music you listen to isn't very good, in my opinion. And I want you to know what good music is so you can experience it yourselves. Why? Well, because I care about you and you matter. All right, so anyway, today we're talking about circles and circumference. And so you're going to see some different terms today. One, you're going to need to understand that pi is a ratio that compares the circumference to the diameter of a circle. And we're going to talk more about what this all means because you might be thinking, well, what does that even mean? Circumference is just like a fancy word for the perimeter or distance around a circle. So think of that word as being just the same as perimeter, only for circles. And secondly, I can calculate the circumference of a circle when I am given the diameter or the radius of the circle. And I'll explain what the radius and the diameter is in just a little bit. And third, I can use the circumference formula to find the diameter of a circle when all I am given is the circumference. So Ken, if you're given the distance around a circle, can you tell me the distance across the circle? And I'm going to show you how to do that as well. All right, so anyway, a circumference, again, it's like perimeter, okay? It's the distance around a circle. And so you imagine that you're on the outside of the circle here and you're just traveling around. You just traveled around the circumference of that circle, okay? And pi, there's a Greek symbol, pi. It's one of the letters of the Greek alphabet. To make it, you can just start by making a couple of little line segments like this, and then just put like a little squiggly over the top of it. That's a pi symbol, and it refers to the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter. If you take the circumference, the distance around the circle, and divide that by the diameter, which is the distance across the circle at its widest point. Here's the center of the circle. Um, that's where pi comes from, okay? That's how pi is calculated. So pi has a value of 3.14. We're going to talk a lot about this. 3.14 is actually just an estimation of what pi is. All circles, no matter how big they are or how little they are all proportional to each other. And there's a common ratio that exists where if you take the distance around a circle and the distance across the circle and divide them, it always equals 3.14 every single time. It's a common ratio since all circles are proportional to each other. Now, if you just go ahead and rearrange these letters here, if I were to follow my rules for a one-step equation, I see I have C divided by D, circumference divided by diameter. I can undo division by multiplying. I can multiply by diameter, D, which means I do the same thing over here on the right of this equation. If you divide by D and then multiply by D, those cancel each other out and you end up with C equals pi times D. And what you're going to see right here is this is our circumference formula. If you want to find the distance around a circle, its circumference, you can take pi, that common ratio, 3.14, times the diameter, the distance across the circle, and that'll give you the circumference. This formula is just taken from this pi ratio of circumference divided by diameter. It's just written in another form. All right, so diameter is the distance across a circle at its widest point. It passes through the center of the circle. We're going to talk about several different terms here. And I promise this is all going to come together and you're going to see what we need to do today is pretty easy. I have some different terms here. Radius. Radius is the measurement from the center of the circle to the outside edge of the circle. In fact, the radius is how you make a circle. If you imagine having a stake pounded in the ground right here, and then there's a chain running from that stake. And over here at point E, you have a dog connected right there. That dog can run around with the chain pulled at full length all the way around that point where the stake is pounded in the ground, and it's going to leave a path. Like if there were snow on the ground, it would leave a path that's a perfect circle, because this circle is all just a collection of points that are that same distance away from that center point. And this measurement here is the radius, okay? A diameter is this measurement going all the way across the circle, passing through the center. And actually, the radius is exactly half the length of the diameter. The reverse of that is true too. The diameter is always double the radius. So if the radius was 5 inches, this diameter would have to be 10 inches. A third term we need to know is chord, C-H-O-R-D. A chord is any line segment that has its endpoints on the circle. Like segment CD here is a chord. You know what? The diameter is also a chord. But the diameter is a special chord because it's passing through the center of the circle, and it also, as a result, ends up being the longest distance across the circle. Okay, that's the diameter. It's just a special chord that passes through the center of the circle. So key terms, diameter and radius are the big ones here. The diameter is twice the radius. The radius is half the length of the diameter. Okay, so what is pi again, and where does it come from? Well, again, pi is that common ratio found by taking the circumference of the circle and dividing it by its diameter. Take the distance around this clock, if you measured that distance, and divide it by the distance across the clock at its widest point. Okay, that circumference divided by this diameter will equal 3.14. In a roll of pennies, if you look at the end cap here, it's in the shape of a circle too, isn't it? And if you took its circumference and divided it by its diameter, it will also equal 3.14. Remember how I told you that 3.14 is really just an approximation or an estimation of the value of pi? Yeah. Pi is circumference divided by diameter. We always use 3.14 for pi, okay? If somebody asks you, hey, what are you going to enter for pi? Just say, I'm going to enter 3.14. Don't use the pi button on a calculator. Use 3.14 for pi, unless you are asked to use something else in place of pi. Okay, so why? Why do we use 3.14 as our approximation for pi? Isn't 3.14 an approximation of pi? Yeah, and I want to show you here. Here's pi, 3.141592653589799323. It just goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. It's an irrational number. So at some point we have to round it. And so that's why we choose to round it just to the nearest hundredths place, 3.14. Okay, it's irrational. All right, so how are we going to use this? Let's say I want to find the circumference of this circle. All right, so the very first thing I will always do, and you need to do the same, is write down the formula. C equals pi times d. Is that a pretty easy formula to remember? C equals pi times d. That should be pretty easy to remember, right? So C, the circumference, equals pi times the diameter of this circle. So I'm going to rewrite it. C equals, but now I'm going to substitute in numbers. What do I put in place of pi? Well, we use 3.14 for pi. So it equals 3.14 times the diameter. And I like to show I'm multiplying by using parentheses. Now, do I know the diameter of this circle? Do I know the distance all the way across the circle? I do. It says it's 13 meters. So I have C equals 3.14, that's pi, times 13, that's the diameter. And you can use calculators on this assignment. I just have a regular calculator here. You might have a nice scientific calculator that you can use. But I'm going to enter 3.14 times 13 equals, and it's 40.82. Now remember, this is the distance around the circle. The circumference is the distance around the circle if you travel all the way around the outer edge of this circle. So it's 40.82 meters. That's our unit of measurement here. And that's it. See how easy that is? Pretty easy, right? C equals pi times d. All right, let's look at another example here. Find the circumference of this circle. So my first step is still the same. I'm going to write down my formula. C equals pi d. Circumference equals pi times diameter. So that means the circumference equals 3.14 times, oh, now what is the diameter of this circle? Do I know what the diameter is? We need to be kind of careful here because this measurement that's shown, this 5-foot measurement here, is it going all the way across the circle? No, it's connecting the center of the circle to the outside of the circle. This is just the radius. What would I need to do to that measurement to find the diameter? Well, I'd have to double it because remember the diameter is double the radius. So if the radius is 5 feet, the diameter must be 10 feet. Okay, so we do have to be careful that we're using the right number. Pay attention in the picture. If the line is going all the way across, that is the diameter. If it's only going halfway across, that's your radius. You need to double it to get the diameter. So C equals 31.4. That's what you get when you multiply these together. Feet is my label. So it's a pretty easy formula, C equals pi times d. The big trick is make sure you're careful that you're using the correct measurement for the diameter. All right, find the circumference here. What is this measurement? It's kind of nice to look at it right away and see. Is this the diameter, 48 meters? Well, it does look like it's going all the way across the circle. So yeah, that is your diameter. So to find the circumference, C equals pi times d, always start by writing the formula down. And then I'll write it again, only now I'm substituting in numbers. C equals 3.14 times 48. And now I get to multiply these together. Oh, what's that going to be? Around 155 or so, 156. Let's see. 3.14 times 48, I'm just using my calculator, equals, 150.72. I have meters here for my measurement, so I'll label it meters. 150.72 meters. Is this pretty easy? This isn't bad at all, is it? Let's do one more here. This one has a decimal, but don't worry about it. We have calculators we can use. C equals pi times d. Remember, it says find the circumference, so I'm using my circumference formula. C equals, what do I put for pi? 3.14 times d, the diameter. Is 31.5 feet my diameter? No, it's only going halfway across the circle. This is the radius. So I need to double this, 31.5 times 2, to get my diameter, and that's 63. And all that's left to do now is multiply these together. Oh, I just lost my headset. There we go. So I'll take 3.14 times 63. That equals 197.82 feet. All right, I hope that all makes sense. Good luck on your assignment. See you tomorrow.